dismembered, decapitated. It's probably because you're trying to hide something and make sure certain details don't come out.
10 to Life with Elise.
Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise and this is 10 to Life. Here is where we talk all things true crime, good, bad, ugly, current, old, cold. We talk about everything. So if you're brand new stopping by for the first time, please hit that subscribe button below if you enjoy today's video, and you can always show your support by liking this video as well. For you returning subscribers, I love you guys. Welcome back. You already know what we do here. No need to school you on that. I appreciate you guys stopping in. So I wanted to jump on here really quickly, and I apologize. You could see I'm clearly just literally rolled out of bed, but I wanted to come on here and share my thoughts with you on the new documentary of the Gabby Petito case, because as many of you probably know, Peacock just came out with a brand new documentary. It came out today, in fact, and lots of people are talking about it. I personally am very familiar with the case at this point, but I wanted to watch it as well because I wanted to see if there were any new revelations. And for me, there was one particularly that stood out, and so I figured that I would come on here and share it with you guys. First and foremost, the documentary, in my opinion, is extremely well done. Now, I can't play it here due to copyright issues, but I highly encourage all of you guys to take a look, watch it. I think it was very well done. The parents did an absolutely phenomenal job, not the Laundries, but the Petitos, did an absolutely phenomenal job just really explaining the details to us, conveying the emotion behind it. I mean, honestly, it's one of the better documentaries that I've seen. And as I was watching this, again, I was just trying to see, okay, is there going to be any other pieces of information we learn from this that can kind of help piece together for us why this happened, the timeline in which certain things happened, if the parents knew. I mean, I just had a lot of questions. And if you've been watching my channel and any of my videos on this particular case, you know that the majority of my videos about this case are rooted with my suspicion that Brian Laundrie is tied to Kylan and Crystal, the couple who was killed in Moab. And a lot of people agree with that, many disagree, but that's really been my stance on this case. And with that, I just released another video. You can take a look here if you haven't watched it yet, a couple of days ago, where I was questioning not only his tie to that young couple, but also his parents' potential involvement. And if they helped aid him while he was on the run, there's now this $20,000 that the parents are trying to get in court and the probate court now that he's deceased. I'm going to do all these air quotes because I know a lot of you don't believe that he is deceased. And so I just kind of was trying to piece together, like, I know that Roberta and Chris Laundrie are not any of our favorite people. Like, I think we can pretty much say that hands down. And me particularly, as I was watching this documentary, not only did it make me dislike them even more, but there was a piece of information that really stuck out to me. And let me go over this with you. Now, as Gabby Petito's mother is speaking, she is outlining for us how it really started to become suspicious towards the end of August when Gabby wasn't responding to her phone calls and her text messages. And we all know that timeline of events, which I'm going to go over it for you here. And I actually put together a graphic for you guys to make it easier to follow. But she says that, she wasn't active on social media. She wasn't returning her texts or phone calls. And that's when the red flag went off. Now, something that I hadn't heard before that I thought was really interesting as I was putting all of these dates together is she states how before Brian even returned to Florida with the van and without Gabby, that she was reaching out to Brian's parents asking if they knew where the kids were or had they talked to the kids. Now remember, at this point, nobody suspected anything was necessarily wrong with Gabby alone, but her parents say that they suspected possibly both of them were injured hiking or that they were lost or something had happened. So she says that she reached out to both of Brian's parents with a simple blanket question, hey, have you heard from the kids? Inclusive of both of them, because at that point, she thought maybe something had happened to both of them. And those messages and calls remained unanswered by Brian's parents. And again, this was prior to Brian returning to Florida without Gabby. So my mind immediately is like, wait a minute. They must have known something was going on then prior to him returning to Florida for them to evade these questions and not respond to Gabby's parents when they're asking if they've heard from the kids. How could they have known? Then I go back and think, wait a minute. Remember that bogus, crazy story about Brian going back to Florida to clear out his storage unit, and then he flew back to Utah and all of that. Could something have happened prior? Now, I don't think Brian's confession took place when he went back to Florida for that storage unit, because if you know, and if you've been following, Gabby spoke to her father a few days after Brian returned back to Utah. However, I think it's very, very suspicious that the parents are ghosting Gabby's family at this point when they're asking, hey, have you heard from the kids? When they didn't even know Brian and Gabby were apart at this point, allegedly, because he was still not back in Florida with her van. So when would Brian's parents have been notified by Brian that something had gone wrong? Because it had to have been, again, before he returned on September 1st. Now, let me pull up this graphic for you guys really quick, because I just kind of want to go over this with you. I put this together because, again, as I've been following this case, to me at least, there is a tie to the Moab couple. I think it's too many coincidences to explain away. I think there are way too many similarities. It's just, the whole thing feels gross, and I'm not ready to shut the book on these two being linked at this point. And let me explain why. I put this timeline together, so if you just kind of take a look. So on the 12th of August is when Gabby and Brian argue outside of the Moonflower Co-op, which is where Kylan, one of the girls of this young couple, worked, and she was working that day. That same afternoon, they leave the Moonflower Co-op, and that's when that other man calls 911 saying that he saw DV happening on the side of the road, that Brian was slapping Gabby, and then the body cam footage comes out and shows that encounter when they pulled them over and when they were talking to Gabby and Brian about what happened. In which, again, my opinion, Gabby is obviously innocent here, and Brian was trying to gaslight the entire thing, saying that she was, the aggressor, and it's just, oh God, it's so gross. So the altercation happens, the body cam footage, and we know at this point that Gabby and Brian then are separated. Gabby is in the van and Brian goes to a hotel which happens to be 7 minutes away from a local tavern. Stay with me here. So the very next day, as Brian and Gabby are separated, he posts on Instagram a solo photo of him with a geotag in the same campsite and park as Kylan and Crystal had been camping for several weeks. Well, later that evening at the tavern that is 7 minutes away, a 7-minute walk away, I believe, from where Brian's hotel was, Kylan and Crystal are complaining to friends of a creepy guy that they encountered at that campsite. Okay, not super coincidental at this point, but starting to look a little weird. Then the very next day, on August 14th, Kylan doesn't show up for her shift at the Moonflower Co-op. Then the next day, on the 15th, Kylan and Crystal are reported missing. Now, 2 days later, on the 17th of August, Brian leaves Utah. And this is for that mysterious flight home to Florida. I've got to clear out my storage unit. I have to, I want to save the money, even though the airfare is going to for sure cost more than a month of storage fees. So it makes no sense. The day after he leaves Utah to go back to Florida, Kylan and Crystal's bodies are discovered, and this is on the 18th of August. And then 5 days later, he returns to Utah. And I outlined the details of their cause of death in their case. I'm going to link that video right here for you guys, or here's the thumbnail, but you can find it in the playlist or just look below. So now we go back to the timeline of Brian with Gabby. So he returns to Utah on the 23rd, and Gabby has her last phone call with her dad on the 24th, where she's asking him for help with her email address that's set up for her YouTube account and for that business of influencing that she was trying to generate and kickstart and get going. And then the very next day on the 25th, it was her last social media post. Now I put in here when the van was spotted in Wyoming, because that was on the 27th, 2 days later after her last Instagram post. And a lot of us were under the impression, that he drove the van or she drove the van to Wyoming. And obviously we know that's where she was disposed of and so forth. But what's interesting too is in this Peacock documentary, her mom, there was a man who had slowed down the footage so much so and edited it to where he could see what's going on with the van that was parked on the side of the road. And Gabby's mom, you see the van, the door shut. And the way it shut, apparently, and you can't really see who it is that's shutting it, but Gabby's mom says she's confident that that was Gabby who shut the door and that it was proof of life. Now, because this was extracted from the footage from that couple who first, blew this open with finding the van on the side of the road, even though it was spotted in Wyoming on the 27th. Gabby's mother believes that she was still alive on that day. But then still no contact, no communication with her mom. And then she gets the very last text message on the 30th of August, and it's that infamous no service in Yosemite. And her parents also explain here how the red flags were going off because they were supposed to be going to Yellowstone. Instead, they went further west to Yosemite, and that didn't seem right, and it just wasn't making much sense. And as we know, then on the 1st of September, Brian returns home to Florida with the van, but with no Gabby. So to quickly circle back, as you're looking at this timeline too, around this point between the 24th and the 30th is when Gabby's mom says that she wasn't hearing much from Gabby. Gabby wasn't posting on social media as frequently, which would be then again, that would narrow this down from the 25th to the 30th. So a 5-day stretch here. And that's in that 5-day stretch is when she was reaching out to Roberta and Chris Laundrie saying and asking, hey, have you heard from the kids? And they were not responding. They were ghosting her. This is before Brian even returned home. So they had to have known, in my opinion, that something was wrong in these 5 days. And that's why they weren't responding to their inquiries of if the kids were okay or if she had talked to the kids. Because why else would you suddenly ghost your son's fiance's family and not answer if they were worried about the children's safety? You wouldn't. So I believe that Brian must have called or confided in them, and that's when they, kind of started to concoct whatever plan was going to happen, because then, as we know, he returns home on the 1st, acts as though everything's fine. They go on a family camping trip together. They do, it's just sick. And then still nobody had even told Gabby's family at this point that he was back in Florida without her. Finally, the detectives tell her that after she files this missing persons report, and she files the missing persons report on the 11th of September, and Brian goes missing 2 days later on the 13th, which, remember, originally it was like a few days after that, but then they realized, oh no, he really has been missing from the 13th. We don't even know how. Just this insane story in my opinion, which makes no sense. So he goes missing 2 days after she's officially reported missing. Some red flags, probably because you are starting to know that the walls are closing in. Something else that they talk about in this documentary that I thought was interesting is they really do talk about those theories that people believe the parents planted the evidence at the Carlton Reserve because that same camp or that same site had been searched, time and time again 4 weeks earlier, and then boom, the park reopens, and after 20 minutes, when Chris and Roberta happen to be there, they find his belongings. And I know that the park at that time, it was under 75% of water, and that it had at that point receded quite a bit. But they do talk about a lot of these theories, which I think is very interesting. So my question for you guys here, what do you think Brian's parents truly knew? Do you think that they knew before he returned home to Florida? Or do you think it's something that possibly Brian returned to Florida, confided in them, and that's when they helped him get the head start, in my opinion, for fleeing and being on the run? To me, very similar to the Moab couple. There are too many coincidences and red flags for it not to mean anything. You know the expression, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's tons of smoke with the Moab situation, and there's tons of smoke with Roberta and Chris Laundrie, because not only the unanswered texts, but then they are confused about the day Brian actually went missing, and then a week later, whatever it was, they realize, oh no, it was actually days earlier that we hadn't seen him. Now there's also this mysterious money that came into play, and why would he be so concerned about storage fees if he had this money, whether it was an inheritance that people are saying or not? I mean, there's just so many questions, and I wanted to make this a quick update for you guys and more specific to the documentary. So if you are interested in all of those things that I'm mentioning and you're like, wait, what the hell is she talking about? I've never heard that. Just watch my previous video and then one before that. There's literally, I think, only 2 videos that I've done on it, and it's mainly how it ties in with Moab, and it talks a lot about Brian's parents because I don't like Brian's parents. That's just my opinion. Well, actually, it's not my opinion. It's my feeling. I don't like them. I think they're shady. I think something's up. What do you guys think? What do you make of the fact that when Gabby's parents and Gabby's mom were asking Brian's parents, hey, have you heard from the kids? And they ghost her. Did they know? Did they not know? Or is that a coincidence? What would you do if you were in that position? If you truly didn't know and you hadn't heard from the kids, would you still ghost them? Or would you be like, hey, no, I've been trying to get in touch with them too, and I haven't had any luck. I wonder what's going on. To me, the silence speaks volumes, and it makes me believe that they knew before he even returned to Florida that something had happened to Gabby. And if that is the case, Will they be charged? Because I believe not only did they know, but I believe they helped Brian get the head start while he was on the run. What do you guys think? Leave your comments below. Let's talk about it. I want to hear what you think. And watch the documentary, guys. It's good. It's a good one. It's on Peacock, and it's about an hour and a half, but you'll find it really interesting, and I think it was really well done. If you enjoyed the case video and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so by hitting that subscribe button below to show your support. It's free. And if you hit the thumbs up, I would appreciate it. And as soon as I have more updates on this, I'll let you know. I'm going to be digging into these parents a little more because now it's my mission to figure out what the hell is going on with them. So subscribe and turn your notification bell on so that you get notified when I come out with those updates because I'm going to get to digging. All right, guys, I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope you enjoyed today's video and the coverage. Watch the documentary. Let me know what you think on this in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Until the next case, stay safe. Bye.